call the meeting to order for Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission for Monday, October 13th, 2025. We'll start off with our roll call. Position 1, Carrie Stuckey, that's me. Position 2, Denise Marion. Oh, you're on mute, Denise, but I do see you. Thank you. All right. Position 3 is currently vacant. Position 4, Eric Jabzinski.
Here.
Position 5, Tom Jones. Here. Position 6, Kim Ford.
Here.
Position 7, Vicki Biggs.
Here.
Our student representative is absent today, it looks like. And then Councilmember Eric Marshall.
Here.
All right. So item 2, just a quick introduction of our newest commission member, Denise Marion. We'd like to say welcome, Denise. We're happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
All right. Next up, approval of the agenda. Were there any changes to be made or questions about the agenda?
I make a motion to approve agenda as written.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is approved. Next, we have approval of the minutes for our meeting of September 8th, 2025. Were there any questions or changes to be made to those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Oops. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is approved. Next up, we have public comment. We did receive several emailed public comments. They are in the packet. I didn't know if they were going to be displayed or read. No. Okay. They are in the packet for everyone to look at. And then did we have anyone present that would like to make a public comment today?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm not going to tell you anything you haven't heard of.
I did see a note here that we received another public comment this morning that is not in the packet. Okay, did we have that to be oh, it's, got it, okay. All right, thank you. Okay, we will go ahead and move on to our discussion items. Item A, pickleball update.
Before I get into the estimates, Tom, you had shared a picture. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, you'll notice on the back, there's a picture. This is first of all, I took to heart all the comments wanting to retain the basketball courts at both Fort Nugent and at Windjammer. I mentioned before, I was a basketball player. It was a huge part of my life as a kid. And so I understand where they're coming from. I just don't see any other option for pickleball that would be reasonable, and I don't think we could ignore the demand any longer. So this picture here is of Larson Park in San Francisco. I lived about a mile from here, and I spent days and days at this park, probably wearing through many pairs of basketball shoes. So if you look at this, there's really like two sections to this. They're all pickleball courts now. The lower section you can see a little bit. The upper section you can see a lot. The lower section was a basketball court. The upper section was a tennis court. And this is where I spent hours and hours, days and days playing basketball and other things there. So when I went back a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, I went up there, and they're now pickleball courts. So you can see all the people waiting to play, and that's the queue to get on the courts for the upper courts. There's 4 courts there, and there's 4 courts that were previously a basketball court. So they have 8 courts altogether. So there's another queue down below that's not in the picture. I just wanted to show this to point out that times change. The popularity of pickleball is undeniable. And even as a basketball player that has very fond memories of playing there, I couldn't possibly argue with the use that this park is getting now. So it's kind of similar to what we're faced with Fort Nugent situation. And I wanted to point out that, this particular facility where they already made the conversion, to me has been hugely successful. And I just can't see how we can deny doing this. There is still opportunity for basketball players around the city, so that, missing that one court, it's hard to take anything away. It's particularly hard for me to recommend taking away a basketball court, but I just don't see any other option. So that was the reason I submitted this picture, just as a kind of a parallel operation in an area where I grew up. Thanks.
We are still working on cost estimates for changing over the basketball courts. Let's see. Maybe better just to share my screen. That might be easier. We did get quotes for both the Sumner, Windjammer, and Fort Nugent parks. There you go. Windjammer. Now this is just for lining, and I'll go over the other costs estimates that we have. Soft estimates for. So $43,000 to do a 2-color court lining at Windjammer Park. We have $21,000 to do 2-color court lining at Fort Nugent, and then $43,000 to do a 2-color court lining at. I'm sorry, that's at Windjammer. It's the 41 is for Sumner Park, I believe. Sorry, it's really hard to navigate this just doing the screen share because it's not showing my windows. So let me pull up my sheet here. This will be easier for us to go through here. Okay, and Fort Nugent Park is probably about half the cost for the lining as the other ones because it is a smaller court. I'm guessing that's where that consideration comes in. So here we go. Just as for the lining, $21,000 plus tax for Fort Nugent, $43,000 for Windjammer, $46,000 for Sumner. He doesn't install nets. We have a good guesstimate on that is about $1,000 per court for the nets and posts, so about $3,000 total. We're also waiting on cost estimates for fencing. $6,000 is a good guesstimate. I feel that's probably a little low. We did get quotes when we were looking at the Rotary Park, and those came in. Fence was $40,000 to fence that in, and about $40,000 to do the surfacing prep, the lining, striping, dig and sleeve, set the sleeves in concrete for the posts, and all that. That was back in 2023. So about $40,000 to do most of it. Fencing was half that cost. I would anticipate fencing has not gone down in price, so $6,000 is probably a little low. These are pretty soft. We also don't have the cost yet for pulling those basketball posts and then patching that as well. But all in all, with considerations, at least for Fort Nugent, since that's one that you have been focusing on, roughly about $40,000 to convert that from basketball court into the pickleball courts. There may be other costs that we're not considering with this, and until we get like a good hard quote, we won't have that totally nailed down, but that's about it. You can add on another $21,000 if we were to do it at either Sumner or Windjammer Park, though.
Thank you. Did we have any comments?
Tom, is your microphone on?
Oh, sorry, I thought I had it on. we don't need a 10-foot fence. And it looks like the quote is for a 10-foot chain link fence. So 4 foot is adequate, more than adequate, so that would probably lower that cost a little bit. And that's based on 4 sides, so that's fine. Push comes to shove, we could probably just do 2 sides, but the players would much prefer 4 sides.
Any other comments?
So I appreciate all the work that you guys have done to figure out the cost to convert. I just don't agree with taking away a basketball court for children, since there's just no other area around there that they can walk to and safely play something that they love to do.
Yeah, one of the other comments I wanted to make, Vicki, was that the pickleball is now part of the curriculum for physical education at the high school. It's also part of the physical education curriculum at the middle school, and I'm told that it's going to be part of the curriculum at least one of the elementary schools next year. One of the teachers, PE teachers at the intermediate school had mentioned to me that at the end of the semester or year, whatever it was, she just informally asked the kids what was their favorite activity, and she said 75 to 80% said pickleball. So I think we have to consider the possibility that pickleball might be more popular with kids than basketball. I really wouldn't doubt it at all. Anybody that's going to public schools now in Oak Harbor is being introduced to the sport. And it's a sport they can play with their friends. It's not expensive. It's a sport they can play with their parents. So I guess I'm not of the mind that for sure basketball is more important to kids, or that they would play it more than they play pickleball. I think the opposite may be true. I don't know, but just from what I'm seeing here. So I think we need to consider that.
Do we have any idea of usage of the Fort Nugent basketball courts at this point? I know that we were kind of guessing at our last meeting, but has there been any more research on that?
Research, say that one more time.
The usage of the basketball courts at Fort Nugent?
We're not out there like
Sure, I just didn't know if
It's
anybody had been paying closer attention to it or anything like that.
just from casual observations, when I go with my family over there in the evening time, there's usually, some kids playing on the basketball court. I don't see a lot of full-on pickup games on the weekend. Sometimes it happens, but no, we don't have a good idea for throughout the week and through the season what those numbers are.
Okay.
And I think that's the problem with a lot of what we do when we consider making changes here, is most of our evidence, if you can call it that, is anecdotal. And we have to take that, into consideration here. We're trying to do the best we can without a real scientific way of which tracking data for usage and participation and interest and all of these things. And, for the community watching and everybody here, I think we need to remember that. And we're trying to do the best we can without a great way to capture data. And the data is usually offered, simply by observation, and that's the best we can do right now, is those of us who are most involved in the community and are participating are trying to do the best we can that are sitting here, and we appreciate those who are offering their opinion and trying to provide us with information to help make good decisions as well. And so I hope we can remember that as we present evidence, but also as the community comes and engages, please help us, but also understand that without a scientific way to capture this, we are functioning off anecdotal and perspectival and subjective evidence. And hopefully you offer us some grace too, as we're trying to do the best we can with the way in which we have ability to capture this information.
Would putting pickleball courts over at Sumner require fencing or removal of basketball hoops?
The Summer Park already has a fence in place. There's no basketball hoops at Sumner, just we have existing tennis courts. So it's balanced out, right? So it's about $20,000 more, but you don't incur the cost of the fencing or the post drilling.
So to be clear, at Sumner, that would be adding entirely new courts or converting one of the tennis courts?
Converting.
Okay. Just wanted to make that clear.
To add courts, we're redoing the Fort Nugent project.
Right,
that we're
exactly.
getting to the end of right now.
I think the other thing we have to look at, well, a couple of things. One is I think we need to try to maximize the benefit of any of the facilities that we have. I mean, it's solid in my mind that pickleball would be way more popular and the court would get used a whole lot more than it does currently for basketball. Scientifically, I can't address that. The other thing is opportunity. And I think, you know, when you look through this newsletter, which has like 21 pages of great activities, all kinds, you know, Liz and her staff work hard to provide something for everybody. And they're not all successful, and that's fine. Some of them are used a lot. Some of them fail, if you want to use that word. I wouldn't use that word because I think if we offer things and we don't get a big turnout, then that's our staff doing their job. They're going to fail once in a while. They have to try. But really what we're providing here and what we'd be providing with the courts is opportunity. We don't force anybody to do this, but we give them an opportunity to do the things they like to do. And right now, the city provides no opportunity for pickleball. The school does, as we've mentioned many times. So to me, it's really a glaring deficiency that in today's world where pickleball is so popular and growing even more year by year, that we don't have public courts for our citizens. So anyway, thank you.
I think that's kind of where I'm at too, is that I hate to take away any amenities that are already existing, but to Tom's point, we don't have any pickleball courts that the city owns or maintains. We do have lots of basketball hoops and courts around town. So, like I say, I hate to take away an amenity, but I do see the need for the pickleball courts, and the fact that the city doesn't own any is a little bit of a problem, I think, at this point in time. Go ahead.
So if I may just speak to that, it's not like we're ignoring the issue. However, we're in the midst of trying to put together a 8-court project. And so we haven't ignored the fact that we don't have that. We're working towards it. Nothing, you know, I mentioned at the last council meeting, nothing in government works quickly. It takes time to do this. The issue, the concern I have is setting a precedence, right? Whoever screams the loudest then gets the most attention, and then we're going to prioritize funding, we're going to prioritize projects based upon who's yelling the loudest. And so if I'm not objecting at all to creating opportunities for pickleball, but where does it make most sense that we're not taking opportunities away from other sports? You know, it was presented to us, Sumner Park has the ability to be multi-use. It could be pickleball, it can be tennis, it has the courts, it has the netting, it has the fencing. So that to me seems like one of the most logical locations. But to prioritize a project simply because we're getting a number of public out, what that does is encourages others and say, well, we've already had roller derby come and say they want a facility, you know, and so what then becomes the priority? How many people come in and start saying, well, this is what we want, this is what we want it, this is how we want you to do it, and then all of a sudden it's our job to prioritize on funding that. We have a capital improvement project, we have a plan, this is how we fund projects. It is done in a systematic, orderly process, and we've been working on pickleball for years, so it's not that we're ignoring the problem, it is just taking time to work through the governmental steps to do that. Whatever we do here has to still go before council and be funded. It has to be a budget amendment. We don't have the funding in place currently for any of these projects. So I understand the desire, I understand the passion, and I completely support it. We just have to make sure that we are doing our due diligence as a governmental agency, making sure that we're following our processes and we're not jumping over other spends just simply because we have a want, really. I mean, it's when it comes down to it. Again, no disrespect to Darren. I love this gentleman and very, and I appreciate his passion. We just, governmentally have to figure out how the best way to do that. So to the point, we're not ignoring it. We are working very diligently on getting a very large, very expensive project going, so.
And to be clear, I wasn't suggesting that the city is ignoring it. I am fully aware of the project that is in process right now. I'm just, to your point with cost, out of these options, since we don't have funding, if we're going to do any option, it seems like Fort Nugent, cost-wise, is really the only feasible option out of these three options presented.
So not necessarily. We talked about the fence cost. So the fence cost alone at Rotary was going to be $40,000. We don't have that cost currently for the Fort Nugent project. And so if we were looking at simply at restriping, we're at that $40,000 just for restriping Sumner. And so that allows for more court opportunity. Then we don't have to pay for netting. We don't have to pay for fencing. We're essentially at that same cost. And then we're not losing any other additional courts.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding then, because according to Brian, he had a $43,000 quote for Windjammer, $41,000 for Sumner, and $21,000 for Fort Nugent.
Simply for the cost of striping.
Okay.
So then you still have to take out the basketball nets at Fort Nugent. You have to fill in that patch. You have to buy the nets, and you have to put up fencing.
Right.
So by the time you add all of those additional costs in there, you're closer to that $40,000 anyhow. And then you've also lost a basketball opportunity. Whereas if we went with Sumner and just simply restriped it, nets are there, fences there, you're not losing any additional courts because it's a double striping, if I understand, so essentially it's striping for tennis and pickleball. Is that how I understood that when you said two stripes?
No, it's two colors.
Two colors.
Yeah, it's additional $1,000 per sport striping. So if you wanted to stripe for basketball as well, if we were to shift everything over and keep one of the basketball hoops, or if you wanted to keep tennis, just another $1,000 to put in that additional striping for that sport.
So the opportunity to have two sports essentially at that same court without having to incur that additional cost of removing adding nets, removing basketball hoops, and building a fence.
Got it. Tom, did you have something?
I guess I'm not clear on the striping cost. I can't believe it costs $20,000 to stripe 3 pickleball courts. I can understand it maybe if you're overlaying the court and you're putting solid colors.
Yeah, let me give you an overview of what it is. So they will resurface the courts. The courts will be pressure washed, removing debris. The company will fill cracks and holes with a mixture of court patch binder, Portland cement, and silica sand, then sanding it smooth when dry. They'll then apply up to 3 coats of acrylic resurfacer with silica sand as a base coat, and then apply 2 coats of color concentrate with a finer silica sand of the color of our choice, and then apply lines, first using an adhesive to prevent bleeding, following by line paint of the color of our choice. And they can do this work in the summer of 2026, weather permitting. So it's not just going out and spray painting lines, right? There's a process to resurfacing to prep it for the lines and then doing the seal and all that. And that
Madam Speaker, are we at the point of deciding to eliminate Windjammer from our considerations?
That would be a question for the commission as a whole, I guess. In my mind, that seemed like something that, from our previous conversation, none of us were really interested in, converting Windjammer into pickleball courts. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I think also that's a good question. We were responding to the basketball community that came in and made public comments that the Windjammer courts are way more valuable to them than the Fort Nugent parks were. So I guess we then focused on Fort Nugent.
If we're just thinking about the two sites, then eliminating Windjammer, that's good. We've made that decision. Is there any way we can get data on the use of the tennis courts compared with the Fort Nugent basketball courts? My thinking on that is tennis is not going to be played very much in the winter. I don't know if that goes for pickleball too. But I also know my husband is a tennis player and he won't play on a court that's not well maintained. So how well maintained is the tennis court? I mean, if we have this data, it will sure help us end this discussion and make a decision.
Well, there's a couple of issues with the tennis courts. One is when this came to the attention of tennis players, there was blowback that don't give up our tennis courts. And so there is an option possibly to create 2 pickleball courts over the top of one of the tennis courts. You could get 4 courts easily on 2 of the tennis courts. There are 2 tennis courts there. But then the surface is not really appropriate for pickleball. It's kind of a little bit cushioned, so the ball's a little deader on pickleball than it would be on tennis. So that's just a little background on attempts to take a look at the tennis courts. And the feedback we got and the playability as it stands now probably wouldn't do. You would have to take off the veneer or whatever they call that on the top surface of tennis. So those are the issues there. Still, it's a good location. Nobody's going to deny that that's a good location for pickleball. Although there was no real dedicated parking. I think there's a porta potty out there. So that's a little bit of background for you.
I feel like there's several layers going on here. First, we have to recognize that we're sort of operating from a place of scarcity. So anything we do is going to impact another community's ability to access and enjoy their form of, recreation of choice. That's the reality. The second thing is this is a intermediate solution. It's not the goal. Right? It's something temporarily to provide a service while we have a bigger project, a grander project in mind that's really going to provide an excellent facility for this community. With that in mind, thinking about what we need temporarily, can we set our gaze a little lower to get something done temporarily that doesn't necessarily negatively impact to the highest degree some of these other recreation amenities while we keep our eyes on the prize, which is going to be a really, really nice facility. I think there's that going on. And yeah, Council Member Marshall is correct. It takes a long time. But what he did in his comments is bring us back into focus of what we're really trying to go for versus what we can do now. And as Carrie highlighted, yeah, we don't have this amenity and we do have a growing community, and that's important. Also, growing communities are going to necessarily make noise. And whether or not that's the way in which we don't want to respond sort of ad hoc and just spend money sort of willy-nilly based on public outcry, but also at the same time, we want public outcry so we can understand where the issues are, where the pain points are, where the pinch points are, what do we need to do? So we can begin to have a conversation. However, we want to do that in a way that I think is respectful, and this whole process has been. There's a sense of urgency, but it's urgency with respect in trying to solve a real problem, and I think that's critical to this process. There hasn't been tantruming and, a bunch of other things that have happened or can happen in order to try to get a process through, and that's important. So bringing it all back into focus, can we get away without a fence? Can we get away with some lower cost things? Can we get away with a couple of courts that don't tear down basketball poles, but then leave them so when the new facility gets put in place, it returns back to its primary original usage? I don't know. I'm only asking questions, not necessarily saying that these are solutions, but are there ways to do a compromise while we go to getting our gold standard project done and not losing sight of that. And knowing that I think anything that we do is going to be an improvement on what exists right now, and that's good. You know, yeah, we'd love to not have a dead court, but if Sumner's the solution, is it better to have a dead court than a court with root intrusion? Probably. I mean, I'm not a subject matter expert. Is it better to have a couple of courts on Fort Nugent and leave a basketball hoop up or hoops up and have something while we work on this grander project? I would say yes, but I know that's not necessarily ideal state, but none of this project is ideal state. Ideal state's coming. We just need to get the funding.
Do we have any other comments?
I agree with that, Eric. You know, the concern is the feasibility of getting a grant to complete these courts. No question, what we're looking at in the big project is what we all want. We didn't make the cut last year. We can submit again in '26. I'm not personally optimistic based on the state budget, and it looks like the state has even clawed back some money that they had already approved for grants. Is that correct?
Yeah, there has been some reduction or combination of grants.
Yeah. So then it would push it back another, another 2 years to submit again. So I'm not optimistic, and I don't know what other options there are for funding. Now, thankfully, we got a good design that's at 100%. You know, and chronologically, that gets us 80% of the way there. You know, building the courts is a short timeline process. However, on the funding side, we're only 20% there, and we need the other 80% when you include both design and the construction. So I would agree we need to do something that we would consider, I guess, temporary until the other project comes in.
Well, and what I don't want to get is in a situation where we lose sight of the fact that this is a step in a process to putting in a really great amenity or attraction in the city, and we let this thing inflate because we want to get something great done, but, you know, our vision then prices us out of being able to come up with some compromise solution, especially in a situation where we don't have a funding mechanism right now, even for this temporary project, right? Like, we don't have a funding mechanism even for that, and we have to figure that out. So everything's going to require some massaging and creativity in order to even do the temporary, you know, this in-between project. So I would like to see something get done. I'd also like to see it exist on some spectrum of significant compromise and continue to keep our eyes on the real prize so we can get a really nice facility built. And yeah, it might be harder through grants, but how creative can we do? If we've been as creative as we can in coming up with ways to have conversations in and amongst the city recreation and council and all this different stuff, I believe in the power of the creativity of the same group to help figure out, along with staff, how we're going to get this good project done. And I think we can get it done. And I think there's enough interest and outcry and passion for it. And that's what we need to make something happen in a way where we can't just rely on the normal mechanisms that have existed in the past. And so that puts me in an optimistic place, even though in spite of news that would want to turn us towards cynicism or pessimism.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Denise?
if we are talking about funding, surely the people who play pickleball would be able to fundraise instead of relying on state money or somebody else's money. Between the city and the pickleball players themselves, surely they could raise some money. Churches do it, Girl Scouts do it, pickleball people can do it.
Yeah, and that's something that Darren had brought up in the past about the pickleball community fundraising. I think the issue with that is there would be enough money to fundraise for this temporary solution maybe, but the larger project is, Brian, you could give the number of the total amount that that's going to cost. I don't think that the pickleball community is going to be able to raise enough money to make a dent in that cost for the larger project that we're going for at Fort Nugent. So possibly towards this temporary solution, they could fundraise. But we're still kind of waiting for grant funding then for our larger project regardless. Does that make sense?
I wonder if that's actually accurate. Organizations do raise as much as $40,000. I think since we have this cost estimate, the pickleball players and the rest of the community have something to shoot for and see what they can do.
Brian, do you have the total estimate for the large project at Fort Nugent?
Yes. I'll pull it up here.
I may be misunderstanding. The estimates that Brian gave earlier that amounted to around $40,000 and more for Windjammer, those are for a temporary project, is that correct?
Yeah, that's for
Yeah.
conversion of one of the existing sports courts, either basketball or tennis, into pickleball courts. Here, I will share my screen with you.
Well, so that's what I'm referring to for this temporary project. I'm not suggesting that the pickleball players can raise money for the larger project. But if what we're talking about right now is funding for a temporary project, and we need funding for that, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah. So the project is about $1.2 million to do the full 8 courts at Fort Nugent. There's some additional things we put in there. We can also value engineer a few things out, but roughly that's what it is. Now, we have also designed the project in a way that we can scale it to funding needs. So, for instance, we can do half the courts, and then as a phase, and basically cut that project in half. But you do have additional mobilization and other construction costs if you go back to do a second phase. So the project overall becomes more expensive in the long run, but.
When going for grant funding, is that something that would be helpful for us to go for grant funding for a smaller amount for a phase 1 of that project?
You would think that, if we ask for less, then maybe we have a higher chance of getting it. It's actually the opposite. Usually, the grants tend to be awarded to larger projects with bigger amounts. So we absolutely can go after grant funding. I probably wouldn't do it use one of the main RCO, which is the Recreation and Conservation Office grants. I would go after the full project for that. And the more you include in it, the more I think there's a perception of impact and need and attractiveness of the project to be competitive.
That makes sense. Any other comments from commissioners? So do you need a motion from us at this point, Brian?
Since Sandra is still working with the contractors to get good numbers. She gave us what we have so far and some good guesstimates. As you pointed out, we did center the 4-foot fence thing. They gave us an estimate off a 10-foot fence, but that's just because we have not received that quote yet from the fencing company. So you don't have a number yet. solid to work with that we would say, hey, let's go find this number. We can work on, with our finance department, on where we could pull, roughly $30,000 to $50,000 from to possibly do this project. That's kind of your big point. Even if you decide, you know what, we're okay with whatever impact to either sport, we probably want another round of public comment, depending on where you decide, yes, we want to figure out how to make this happen here. I'm going to guess when it's all said and done that it will be a large enough amount, we'll probably want to bring it to council.
So regardless, the finance department can't just find money and say, here it is. The city council appropriates the money, so we can't just magically, hey, here's the money for something the council didn't give authority for. So we still would have to bring it back to council, regardless of the dollar amount, in order to get there okay with having to go ahead and appropriate it for this purpose. If there is indeed available funding at all.
Yeah.
I'd like to suggest that we wait until we get a more finite number, and we can talk about really what we need as opposed to maybe what you're getting right now. That would also give us some time to talk to some of the pickleball communities, see what would be, what they might suggest as a alternative, or reduced scope, I guess I should say.
To save staff time, are we at a point where we want to rule out converting the Windjammer basketball courts for pickleball? Can we just drop that off the table so you don't have to research that? Are we all comfortable?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Everyone's nodding their heads, so, okay.
So maybe what we're looking for is maybe consensus from this board on a direction you would like to continue to pursue. And, we'll keep looking at options. We'll keep pulling, take our costs until we have a good, solid number that we know we're working with. I'm going to guess that it'll be large enough. We will not be able to just fit it within our operational budget. So like David said, that would have to be an additional appropriation ask of council. But we can also look at other smaller grants or, additional funding opportunities, and we'll bring some ideas back.
I guess what I'm getting at is just to have our options very clear, so we know exactly what we're looking at. And if we know we're not going to want to convert the Windjammer basketball courts to pickleball, just stop pursuing that entirely, and then be very clear about what we're actually looking at for Fort Nugent and for Sumner. My question for Sumner, with the resurfacing, I know that it sounds like it can still be used as a tennis court as well, but is that impacting the tennis community when we're resurfacing there? So either way, we're either basically taking away a basketball court or taking away a tennis court. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we did
Okay.
look at that back in 2023 when we were looking at the Rotary Park project and sites before we selected Fort Nugent. Sumner was one of those. We had some discussions. The tennis community came out and had their comments about it and not wanting to put in pickleball lines there as well. And so, yeah, just like basketball community, it's something that you want to consider.
I don't think that's wholly correct, though. You're not losing. You don't necessarily. You can restripe. You can have the ability to have both tennis and
Yeah.
pickleball
Yeah,
on that court, right? So it's not like in the case of Fort Nugent where you're removing the basketball courts entirely. You have that ability. That's their preference not to do that, but they still do. You can multi-line that, and you can still play tennis out there. So they're not necessarily losing as you would be in the case of the Fort Nugent. You'd be losing basketball.
I guess.
In this case, it's more of an inconvenience they don't want to share, essentially, is what it comes down to.
I guess what I'm unclear on is the surfacing. Is that we're resurfacing to accommodate pickleball? Is that correct? We would be resurfacing the tennis court to accommodate pickleball's needs, or would pickleball be putting up with the existing surfacing on the tennis court?
Yeah, you'd be doing the surfacing to prep the site for the lining. It doesn't change like the coefficient or anything that would impact the play for tennis in any way.
Okay, thank you.
I think we should leave Windjammer alone and just look at Sumner and Fort Nugent. I think when we look at Fort Nugent, we should look at an option that doesn't take down the basketball hoops as well.
Eric, just to clarify, do you mean finding a different location or leaving the posts in place so that they can be converted back?
Yeah, so, well, yeah, leaving the hoops in general, or leaving at least one of them and leaving the post of the other. I don't know. I don't know. I want to have the option. I want to know what it's going to cost, what it's going to look like. Again, you know, we're operating on scarcity. How do we compromise here? And knowing that this is an intermediate step, I'd like to have the options to make recommendations for both.
I would agree, moving on from Windjammer. But really what we have down there is 2 full court basketball. And if you take 1 full court basketball away, they still have a full court basketball with 2 baskets. So, I mean, I guess I'm ready to move on from it. I'm just saying, if we're looking at doing something, not taking something away, maybe that should still be an option, but it gets too complicated. So, anyway, I felt like I needed to make that comment, but based on the basketball community's feedback. The other thing that we've discussed at length before was temporary versus permanent nets, and that gets into a whole nother discussion, so. All right, anyway.
So to be clear, that was not the ask at the last council meeting. The ask at the last council meeting was very clear that what they wanted was Fort Nugent. They wanted the basketball courts removed. They wanted the permanent netting put up. They wanted a fence put up. So that was not, the request was for dual purpose. It was very clear, we want the basketball court. So there was no intent to share, and as could be the potential with Sumner, is the ability to share that court space, so.
Okay, so at this point, are we comfortable with dropping Windjammer? Yeah? Okay, and then staff pursuing more information on Fort Nugent and Sumner. Is that okay, Brian? Okay. All right, any other comments or questions? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on to item B, community garden update.
Here, why don't you talk a little bit while I'll put up the screen.
So a quick update that I have for the community parks, I'm sorry, the community gardens. After looking into the original location that I had originally suggested and discussing more with my staff, we've gotten an idea that it might work better. We think it's going to work better in the southernmost corner, and I am not on, I cannot share my screen. So the southernmost corner, I had it in the I had it in the most northeastmost corner of Neal Park, adjoined to the parking lot. And now we're talking about maybe moving it to Holland Park on the southwest side. There's some Gary oak trees down there. There's a ditch in the front, but we bring it out towards the park a little bit more. Whenever I was discussing with my staff, 4-H and Tiny Tots soccer came up in as that open space area gets used a lot. After thinking about it a little bit more, I would hate to put something in and take something away, as we were just talking about with the pickleball courts. That front, the southeast side of the park, which is right here, is a big underutilized area of the park all the way up to that, to the playground. So this would give us our water source, we believe, is going to have to come from the Holland Gardens windmill that's right here, that as well as electricity, because we don't currently own the building at the Girl Scouts. So this is a quicker, smaller run for water and electricity. It kind of opens up a more or less dead area of the park that's very underutilized, and it would give us room to expand. My original design doesn't quite fit in there perfectly with the Gary Oak trees, but it's very close, that we could just adjust that just a little bit to make that fit. And then on the north-hand side, that would be the east side would be the entrance. We would probably lose a bed or two because of the way that I had oriented the beds. But it would also give us room for expansion as well, and not reduce the size of that park in the space that people do utilize. So that's where my head's going right now for this, is to try to make it a better area for underutilized park. Whatever space.
Yeah, I kind of prefer that location anyway. That's originally in my mind, that's kind of the section of the park I was thinking of. Plus, just it makes sense to have it on the Holland Gardens side just for the name. But but location-wise, I do think that makes sense, and I like that. I think that makes sense.
I agree. It's probably a better location, especially when we're talking about vandalism, because I do know on the other side, closer to Neal Park and especially Volunteer Park, we do struggle quite a bit with vandalism. It would be sad to put in these lovely gardens. My question, though, would be about ADA accessibility, because that's a pretty rough gravel parking lot right now. And one of my thoughts was this was a wonderful opportunity for some of our older community members who may not be able to maintain their own gardens, but may be able to participate in a community garden.
Yes, I unfortunately I had that exact same. Whenever we were talking, it was whenever I first wanted to do it, it was the two Gary Oaks. They were the opening. It was going to be beautiful, and you're going to walk right down, and it just doesn't work out there. So then we moved it over, and you still have that ADA access straight from the parking lot straight in. And you're absolutely right. From the new area is we're going to have to go and make a walkway from the parking lot through the lawn there. There's area in between the trees that we can do that, but there is definitely an extra aspect of that. We have got to do that ADA accessible walkway to the structure. And then we'll put the walkway in the structure as well. But yes, there's an additional, that's one, yes. Already thought of that, but yes, thank you.
We are working with the Garden Club on helping to form a community board. That would be a nonprofit organization that the city would do basically like a land lease to. They would manage the space. We have a lease agreement that we're working on in draft, and then also community garden rules. And so some of the just the main points of this is to have a annual meeting with everyone that participates in the community garden. There would be a number of service hours required to do maintenance and help keep up some of the public spaces of the garden. They can choose to pay cash in lieu of that work if they need to. And we'll work on what that looks like. Plot and path maintenance and responsibilities for gardeners related to that as well as end of season clean out. We touch on water availability and responsibility for their plots, where those will be accessed from, and regulations related to that as well for emergencies, contacts for a garden manager, as well as types of materials that can be used and not used. Pets, children, speak to, and then plot assignment. So weed warnings tools. We'll want to have a shed on site for the gardeners to check in. We want to kind of have an idea of how often the garden's being used and who's doing service hours and different things like that. So we'll have that accessible. Trash, prohibited materials. plot renewal, and then sign release for indemnification for the city, as well as an information board. So just kind of a real quick, high-level overview of garden rules. So each person that participates in the community garden will have a copy of this. They'll need to sign off on it, that they understand and they fulfill the requirements for the public spaces. And then we'll work with this board on what a accessible and acceptable fee would be. We don't want to make it cost prohibitive in any way, but just what would help them with their administrative costs and maintenance they will do. They'll work with our department as far as water access, and then any more capital type repairs or maintenance that's needed, our department will help out with that as well, especially around like fencing and different things like that with the plots. We have a number of groups that can come to us wanting to do community service projects, and so we have quite a good volunteer base we can pull from to help with the build out of this, along with the community, along with the garden club, and our department staff as well. The budget for it is being put together now. We'll look and see if that's something that we'll want to include in a future budget appropriation, or if the garden club, along with maybe a grant or just in-kind service through volunteer work, where we can provide the materials and everyone else provides the labor, which would allow us to put that within our operating budget, can be built out. So once we have that all formalized, have a community board together and have it a little more fleshed out, we'll probably bring it back to you guys before we bring it to city council to go into a workshop to give what the work plan is for it and the build-out plan, as well as a look at the land lease agreement, and get their blessing on moving forward with it. But any questions right now?
I have a question. Thank you for that, and thank you for the work. It looks like a lot of work's gone into this. On the rules, what are the consequences if gardeners don't do the rules, if they let their plots go and it turns weedy and it full of invasive species, or they don't fulfill their community service hours?
Yeah, we have a form letter. If there's like I guess you'd call it disciplinary action needed, or a gentle reminder of what the rules and regulations are. Normally the garden manager or a member of that board, whoever that main manager contact would be on that board, would reach out, talk with them. If there is a pattern of violation or something that's a major violation, they would send this form letter. If there's not a compliance within the date that's specified in the form letter, then the board would meet and they can eject that participant at that time. They can vote to do that.
The other question I have has to do with unused plots. Will they be covered or have some means of preventing invasives or weedy material from growing up in there and being unsightly?
Yeah, we can work with the garden board on that. I don't think there will be any unused plots. I've not managed a community garden that has. Usually there's a waiting list. But yeah, it would be the board's responsibility to make sure that there's that those vacant plots are cared for if there are any.
Any other questions, comments?
I guess one question was, did we want to have a member of this commission as part of that community garden board? What would you like to see that relationship look like? Or maybe that's a annual report to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Any thoughts?
I don't think there's a need to have one of our members as part of their board personally. I think if they, we just stay updated through this forum, and any reports they give us is adequate for me.
Anyone else?
I think I have a question as far as just like temperature check on this project. You know, it came up at our last meeting, and it seems like we hadn't talked much about this idea except in regards to potential development down there and removal of that. It kind of was talked about and discussed about if there was going to be some kind of community garden, then all of a sudden it's coming back up and we're moving along pretty quick. Sort of introducing another project before we've built out the master plan, before we've, you know, done some of these different things. And so I guess I'm trying to do two things. One, because clearly there's things that I don't know. So one, what is the department's sort of like temperature check on this? Has this always been something that's been sort of percolating and we're just now getting some action on it with some interested folks who have come along and, you know, worked forward on that? And then I'd also like to hear from Councilmember Marshall about, as far as just his kind of perspective on it from a council position, this project and where it sort of fits in and how he feels about it.
Yeah, this really kicked off for us. The Garden Club was looking at a community garden space, wanting to create something like that. For us, the discussion around Hal O'Malley and the possible loss of the permaculture food forest. Do we replace that? Where would we do that? What does that look like? That's what put it on our radars, and it had more discussion around solidifying those plans and kind of moving that forward. Regardless of what ends up happening with that project over there by Hal O'Malley, this has been identified as something, yeah, we do want to move forward with it. There's enough interest in the community, and we've heard enough from people that we think will have a very good response and it will fill out use. Best practice, though, is to have a separate organization, a nonprofit of some kind, be the ones managing it instead of putting that financial burden and more staff hours on staff to do that. So that requires us relying for the community to come forward and do that. So Garden Club, it's just been a good synergy and match of these projects to combine and go forward with it.
From a council perspective, we've not had a ton of discussion about this other than when we were discussing the Hal O'Malley Park and the possible relocation of the food forest. But if this is something that Brian's been working with the Garden Club on and they've got the buy-in of that, you know, the other organization we had that was kind of responsible for starting that food forest ultimately then turn to the city and say, hey, we want you to maintain it. We want you to water it and stuff. And I don't foresee that happening with the Garden Club. They have a long-standing history in our community. And so I think if Brian's comfortable moving forward with that organization, then from my personal perspective as a council member, it all comes down to money for me usually, right? But I just happen to be that guy. But for the rest of it, though, I'm good with it, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I do think like the Garden Club makes sense as far as a partner for it, and as far as reliability, because that's the other concern, right? It's just what happened down there. You know, it keeps us gun shy, but I don't have any of those concerns with the Garden Club. Thank you, both of you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Do you need anything from us on this item, Brian?
No, mostly just an update. We were wondering if we'd have Aaron from the Garden Club come and speak on it, but they're still working on trying to form what that board looks like. I think once we have that together, that's kind of what we're waiting on for next steps.
Sure. Okay, we will move on to item C then, inclusive playground update.
Okay, let's see if this see if this video will show here. I'm not sure how the sound's going to work with this. There we go. Let's just include sound. And
The project is located in Oak Harbor on beautiful Whidbey Island. The project service area includes families and small communities throughout Island County and Fidalgo Island, with total service area population of just over 107,000. The project site is located at Windjammer Park, a 30-acre park in the heart of downtown Oak Harbor. Windjammer serves as a regional park for the island and the city's main activity park. It's especially important to nearby residents in our most urban areas with higher density housing and disadvantaged neighborhoods. The park has been renovated twice, once in 1982 with the help of RCO grant funds, and again in 2016 as a first phase of modernizing the park along with adjacent public facilities in the downtown area. The playground was included in the 2016 plan, which was broken into phases. The park amenities include kitchens, picnic areas, open space, beach access, swimming lagoons, restrooms, baseball fields, basketball courts, a small non-ADA playground, and a splash park and walking trail. This is the vacant field where the playground will be located on the west side of the park. The City of Oak Harbor, along with Island County, does not have an all-inclusive play environment. It's an hour-and-a-half drive to Mountain Lake Terrace Hazel Miller Playground. We're all excited to hear that time will be cut in half with the future addition of an accessible playground in the Burlington Mount Vernon area. But that's still a 45-minute drive for our families, if they have their own transportation. This is a typical example of the city's playground inventory. You'll recognize it from your childhood. No ADA pathways, pea gravel. Though we're slowly updating to engineered wood fiber, which still is not accessible, and exclusionary equipment, during the past 50 years, standards for accessibility have raised the bar. Oak Harbor has also grown in population, and demands for recreation facilities has greatly increased. Oak Harbor does not have an all-inclusive playground where people with disabilities can improve their physical, cognitive, and social skills side by side with their able-bodied friends. These children are often on the outside looking in and missing out on a crucial component to healthy, typical development. So the city created a new Parks and Recreation Department and has prioritized addressing underserved and underrepresented populations. We found nearly all children with special needs or a disability were missing out on play opportunities vital to their emotional, social, and physical development. It is difficult for children to grow up emotionally healthy if they are denied space and freedom to take and overcome risks, and if they are denied the opportunity to make friends with others of their own age. We found an inclusive playground is in the top 10 improvements to Windjammer Park, and one of the top issues citywide the community and council felt needed to be addressed. This has been reinforced with many families coming to speak at our City Council and Parks and Recreation Commission meetings about the need for more accessible recreational amenities. Council added it to their list of 32 priorities and goals to accomplish and allocated $400,000 to contribute to the project. Here's a shot of the park from the far end looking towards the project site and our downtown commercial areas with a number of apartment buildings just off to the east side. The site is adjacent to ample parking with the ability to increase the number of handicap slots, covered picnic areas and restrooms, all of which are ADA accessible and have ADA pathways connecting. The design connects these ADA pathways already in place for our last park renovation to the playground. It installs structures and safety features to improve play and the user experience and promote the city as a regional destination for inclusive play. The city's new Parks and Recreation Department has prioritized addressing underserved and disadvantaged populations in our community and bringing our facilities up to modern accessibility standards. We will create the first of its kind facility on Whidbey Island. The project scope includes pour-in-place accessible surfacing, fun theming, and a comprehensive variety of features for 2 to 5-year-olds, 5 to 12-year-olds a teen area, and it will have standalone features along with the main structures. The playground will have sensory elements, sound play, quiet hidey holes for kids who need to get away from overstimulation. The play area will be fenced around to help safety for runners and contain several communication elements that introduce, educate, and celebrate our differences and help kids connect with one another and make new friends. The project site is an underutilized field adjacent to another open field area where we do a lot of our special events. The vision and goal with this project to usher the city into modern standards of inclusion and provide a regional play space in a centralized pedestrian-friendly location, easily accessible by multimodal transportation. The project is approximately 16,000 square feet, where visitors of all ages and abilities can play in a safe environment, purposely built to remove barriers to participation.
I'm going to go ahead and stop it just in the interest of time because we are running a little bit behind. So we have a draft RFP that we shared with you a few meetings ago. We do want to bring this to council in a workshop to discuss. As was mentioned in the video, we have appropriated $400,000 from the Windjammer funds for the city's portion of a match grant for the inclusive playground. We can take a portion of those funds for building out the rest of the design and do the permitting to be shovel ready to make the project more attractive for grants and more competitive for the RCO grants that are coming up here in February. So we have a RFP with scope of work that we had shared with you. I'm just going to go back over it and then open it up for discussion. Our Parks and Playground Subcommittee wanted to bring this back and try and get momentum going back on it. So the city is seeking proposals from qualified firms to provide all necessary professional services for the design, permitting, and construction documents for the installation of a 15,000 square foot inclusive play environment. The plans will include an assessment of local community needs, analysis of the site, and identification of applicable permitting. Deliverables will also include the acquisition of permits, construction drawings, sets, and site envisioning renderings as outlined in the project scope, cost analysis to include all site preparation, excavation, grading, stormwater, play surfacing, fencing, site equipment, fixtures, and lighting as outlined in attachment B, scope of services. Proposals should also include contract extension options for project management for the construction and implementation phase. And I'll go down through, and I apologize that the sound doesn't come out very well in that video sharing through here, but I'll just go back over what I talked a little bit about with what we're going to include in there, and then the scope of services for this RFP for the design and permitting, project overview, review the project, we'll meet with our steering committee on it, identify the locations. We'll also look at additional locations. The site was selected in the first phase of the Windjammer Park improvements, and we've kind of kept it in that same location. It fits well with where the layout of other amenities and uses and future improvements for Windjammer Park is. It provides still enough lawn area for games and just open play adjacent to the kitchens there. And it's kind of in an area that's further south than we use for any special events. It's sort of underutilized. So it's a good attraction and a good location in that park. With a regional inclusive playground, you want to make sure that you have enough parking and you have ADA pathways, restrooms, and then access to other amenities like food and things like that nearby. So this was the ideal location that was identified by the steering committee and in line with what the original park layout plans on where we were placing things within the park fit. Citizen participation plan, review existing research, survey potential users and stakeholders because the Navy is a exceptional family base geared and resourced specifically to bring in families with special needs and disabilities. They'll be one of our main stakeholders, and we have several nonprofit and parent groups around the community that are very interested in this project. We did go and present it along with some of the other programs and things that we were doing in Parks and Recreation at the Sherwood. Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, the Sherwood community event. Nice turnout there. We had some great speakers from the county. Dave Paul was there. And I went up and spoke a little bit about the inclusive playground as well. And then we had information and the video to share with families that are more interested in the project and what it included and where we were at with it. So we do want to bring in that community that's a very underserved and portion of our population as far as recreational amenity access goes. And then we'll do a needs analysis. That'll include demographic characteristics, review of existing facilities, make sure that we're scaling the project to potential needs. We had identified about 15,000 square feet just based off of potential use and the location, but we'll want to either reduce that. I don't know that we'll expand it much more. 15,000 is a fairly large play environment footprint, and we need to fence it around as well. So that's a consideration that we'll want to think about, but they'll look at that and make sure that it's sized appropriately to our needs. Determination of user groups and then impact to user groups, needs on facility components listed. Site analysis, so we will look at other locations and make sure that, yes, this is the best location for the playground. There are additional permitting needs with this location. It doesn't make it prohibitive in any way, just some other considerations and a little more time through the permitting process. But since we are still going after the grant funding, next year we have a little bit of time to do those activities. Layout and design, so we'll complete the site plan. We have about a 60% conceptual plan that we've put together working with playground provider partners that we've worked with before. This will actually create construction documents to make it shovel ready. And then we'll finalize what equipment and fixtures to have in place. We'd like to have some theming, make sure that the playground matches the look of Windjammer Park. It's fun and attractive, that we have considerations for fencing needs and lighting needs, and then spatial relationship to other components like the pathway, the kitchens, the special events areas, the sports courts, things like that. And then they'll provide both the conceptual plans and also renderings, which will help us with our applications for grant funding. Project capital cost estimates, so this will dial in those engineering costs for the project. I believe we have a $1.4 million initial cost estimate. So we have $400,000 from city funds that are appropriated right now. We have about $150,000 in-kind services. We already have some commitments from construction contractors that would like to donate to the project. So we're almost there already with our community portion of that budget, and then we just need the grant portion. So that'll dial in and give us all the cost estimates and then the construction documents, and then proposal for the implementation phase with project management and construction management for the installation during that construction project. So that's the scope for it. We have presented the inclusive playground to council. It's been a couple years. We would like to put this back on a workshop item to just go over the scope of the RFP before we put out the RFP. I got a few comments from you guys on the RFP. You have it, and I can resend it out to you if you don't want to dig it up from your emails or meeting notes. But would like to give another last chance for you guys to submit any comments about the inclusive playground RFP, or your comments about the inclusive playground as far as priority-wise in general, before we bring this to council and where it sits with other projects that we're working on currently. Any questions or comments?
In regards to
Yes,
shoreline permitting, how far back would we need to move that facility in order to avoid that step? Or this amenity?
200 feet, I believe, from high water mark. Yeah. So that would put it up more by where we usually do special events.
Yeah, it'd be all the way back by the
Yeah,
fence,
that would
basically.
have more
Okay,
impact on other uses.
thank you.
Denise, go ahead.
Yes, my question has to do with high water mark. I initially just loved the location of this playground until I started to think about the state's shoreline study that indicated there's a 50% chance we'll have a 4-foot higher tides. So when you're talking about the high tide level, what level are you using? Oh, that 4-foot level rise was in 25 years by 2050.
Yeah, I believe it's 75 feet from the regular water line, if I believe right, just remembering from when we did the Angel of Creativity statue. But we just go off of whatever the Department of Natural Resources gives us for that line. But that's also why we have a lot of like parklands and things like that in the tidal lands. You know, if we were to have I don't know remember what it is, 500-year flood event or something like that, you know, then we have this kind of infrastructure that's not very affected by those kind of events.
I think I mentioned before that I live just in that picture of the neighborhood. And I know every winter driftwood gets tossed up over the sidewalk. And if this is right next to the sidewalk, will only be 2 or 3 years before it has driftwood in it.
Yeah, I don't anticipate that it'll be affected by the high tide driftwood. We've only had a few areas where the driftwood gets up near the sidewalk, and this is set back far enough and would be fenced around. We're not too concerned about that.
Well, I am concerned about expending a great deal of money for a project that won't last 10 years. And if it's the location that's the issue, then on the one hand, I don't want to interrupt the lovely kite flying open space. On the other hand, if we need to move it back, considering that the standards that we have used in the past for what high water is are no longer. I mean, it's not a standard anymore. Then maybe we should be considering a location for this investment that's further back from the shoreline now.
So Denise, Brian's going to share his screen, and we're going to, so if you can see that screen, we're going to pull just where we're considering putting it is, this is let's call this the high water mark here. Where we're considering putting it is approximately, it's about 150 feet off. So that's approximately 186 feet. We're going to be somewhere in that vicinity with the inclusive playground. So it's not going to be right off of the walking path that I think you're considering. We're kind of going more inside of the park there.
Okay, that does sound better. The image that was up on the screen before showed it right next to the sidewalk. So yes, I feel better about that location.
Any other questions, comments?
I just had a question about sun shading at the park. Will there be any sun shading incorporated?
Yes, that's something that we've definitely discussed with this project. That will be incorporated, for sure.
And I just want to clarify that about 180 would probably be the far end of it. I'd say the near end is about 100 feet.
Yeah, so that does worry me. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other?
100 feet does seem close to me.
Yeah, and site evaluation and location evaluation is part of the RFP.
Do you know if, yes, that's good. And you might put in the RFP requirement that they take into consideration the state's estimate of shoreline erosion due to sea level rise.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none. Brian, you didn't need anything from us on this at this point, right?
Maybe just your approval or motion to go forward with the RFP, and we'll just include that in the council workshop packet that, you guys have all had a chance to look at it. Like I said, I'll give you another round to look through the RFP and let me know if you have any additional comments since it's been a little while since we went over it. And then we'll try and get that scheduled on a workshop for council.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to proceed with the RFP.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. All right, we will move on to item D, feasibility study for the Recreation Center update.
Okay, Rich, you've been very patient. Thank you for your patience. We've gone through a few other items. So the selection committee reviewed the 7 applications or proposals for the Recreation Center feasibility study and graded those. We did interviews with the top candidates. Barry Dunn was selected by the committee. We went through negotiations with them, looking at the existing budget and what additional value we could put into that. We're still $25,000 underneath that budget, so we'll put forward the agreement as a not to proceed for the amount. It's provided by the state. We can't use it for any other purpose. But wanted to just do a brief introduction with Barry Dunn, let him talk a little bit about the proposal and tell you a little bit about their team. We'll do a full-on project kickoff meeting once that agreement is approved by council, where we'll start to get in the nuts and bolts. But so this will be just introductions and kind of a high overview of the project. Go ahead, Rich. We'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Brian. It's really great to be here with the commission. I want to start off by thanking all of you for your service and everything you're doing for Oak Harbor. These are clearly exciting times for your organization, and I know growth is challenging, but you're handling it with such professionalism. It's been really fun to sit and listen and learn about your community here in the background. As Brian mentioned, I'm with Barry Dunn. We are headquartered out of Portland, Maine. Although our consultants actually live all throughout the country. We all work remote, and we are really excited to visit Oak Harbor and get this project started. We have a couple of other people on the call. I'd like to give them a chance to introduce themselves before I jump into some slides, because once I do that, our pictures become this big, and you have no idea who we are, what we look like. So if you would be so kind, I'm going to turn it over to our team lead, Jason Genk. He was part of the interview process, so you haven't had a chance to meet him, but then we'll jump to Elisa Paradis, who's our principal with the Parks and Recreation and Libraries team in the Barry Dunn family. So Jason, if you'd like to just introduce yourself.
Yes, and I'll be brief. Jason Genk with Barry Dunn. I'm delighted to be visiting with you today. I'm based out of northern Colorado. I did, by the way, spend 10 years in Oregon and helping in the Pacific Northwest on a variety of different types of things. 27 years as a park and recreation director and 4 years serving Barry Dunn and great clients and communities just like yours. We're so excited to be working with you. Thank you. We know you had many competitive bid options. I know we're going to do a fantastic job, and I'm thrilled to be part of this team to serve you. I do co-lead the practice with Lisa Paradis. Lisa?
Hi, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Lisa Paradis. I'm principal with Barry Dunn, and really glad to be here. I will actually be in your neck of the woods next Monday, visiting our wonderful clients in Metro Parks Tacoma. So I know it's not exactly your neck of the woods, but on that side of the country. I am in St. Petersburg, Florida. And as Jason and Rich said, we are all over the country, have several pods, teams of people on the West Coast as well. So really excited to work on this project, and thank you for having us today.
And with that, I'm going to jump very quickly to a few slides we have prepared for you, just to give you a very high overview, if you would. Let's see how this works. All right, well, that's interesting. I don't know that helps us much at all, but we're going to go through it this way. Here's your agenda for the day. We are going to just quickly give you a little bit more information about our firm and show you the full project team, because we do have other members who will be joining us. We have project phases and timeline. We also have our a key focus on engagement, and then give you some time for the questions and answers. But again, understand the time is tight, so we're going to move pretty quickly. Lisa, would you like to just give us a little bit of background on the history of Barry Dunn, if you would be so kind?
Sure. Just briefly, we are about 50 years old, and if you look on our website, you might think, oh, what is this CPA wealth management firm doing in the space of parks and recreation? But we are actually about 1,000 employees right now, and fully about 60% of Barry Dunn is in the consulting world. We do have CPA wealth management, tax and assurance on the other side. We are one big family, but the consulting world is where we live. We have many different practices. We function under the government practice and specifically local. So wanted to let you know we have a variety of options in our arsenal, if you will, that include things like justice and public safety, health and human services, community development, utilities, operations, things like that, that are part of our daily work that other practices do. So if we had any kinds of questions along the way during this feasibility study, we would be able to pull on those other subject matter experts. With that, yep, there you go. Next one.
So you're seeing the project management team on the left, Lisa, Jason, and I'll be your project manager, so I'll be the person Brian is working most closely with. But we also have other subject matter experts who will be popping in and out. These are our subject matter experts, whether that be on engagement or financial analysis, programs, but especially with a feasibility study, that financial piece is going to be a huge part of it. And we do have the expertise that will be joining us on this project. We also have two project partners. Barker Rinker CCAT is our architecture firm that will be joining us, and they will be handling the facility specifically. As well as ETC Institute, that is for a statistically valid sample, because we understand the importance of community engagement. We'll talk a little bit about that more very briefly in a minute, but they will be handling the validated sample, so the random sampling of your community, to make sure that we are in fact reaching every corner of your community and inviting everybody to the conversation. Just give you some real quick previous examples of success to see if you recognize any of our work. We do have, as we mentioned, employees on the West Coast. And Jason, feel free to hop in and talk about some of these projects.
Sure. Yeah, happy to do so. So as far as regional experience, we have experience throughout the United States, but we thought we'd mention a few samples in your region. And we know how important, we appreciate how important this opportunity is for your community, gathering so many ideas and interests to bring the best approach possible, and give you the very best data to be informed and helping make future decisions. But yes, we love your region. In fact, we're kind of just joking as to who gets to go on site first. So we can't wait to see you guys.
And we have some other comparable projects, just showing you a snapshot of the past 5 years.
Yeah, Rich, if I could just add in there is that it's not just the projects. One of the things, and maybe you picked this up in our proposal, that kind of is our hallmark at Barry Dunn is actionable planning. So all of our team members have developed, built, and operated these types of facilities as practitioners, as previous facility operators, as partners, as executive directors, certainly involvement as board members. And we think that's important because ultimately we just want to make sure we're providing the very, very best opportunities for you and what matters for you, and coming with that lens of yes, consulting, yes, data supported information, but also of a practitioner too. And we want to, again, give you every opportunity for success. And if there are questions later on, happy to talk about any specific. There's quite a bit going on in this realm right now, and Pflugerville, Rich, thank you, is one of them. Pflugerville, Texas happens to be one we're particularly proud of, and we're proud of all of our projects. But in this example, this was a co-funded project that included a community center, a recreation center, that was a economic development opportunity, a incubator, if you will, for the new downtown. And we were very happy to be involved. And the engagement that I know Rich is going to talk about in a few minutes, I know engagement is important too, learning from all different types of potential users and even non-users in your community. And we had so much fun. What you're seeing there in the background, and Rich, I might be stealing some of your thunder, and I'm sorry, but what you're seeing in the background picture is actually a mobile chalkboard that we did 142 miles on. It hit every neighborhood of that community. And we feel very proud about that, to then have really the voices of the community and data that supports decision making. And they did move forward, and they are under construction right now in that particular case for a downtown recreation center.
If I'm not mistaken, that's about $80 to $90,000.
It's about
$1 million project.
Yeah, I wish it was $80,000. But yeah, again, they're again have a number of goals that also relate to economic impact and development, and they're sitting at about $80 million. Yes. And Timnath, another good recent example. Timnath is located in northern Colorado. They just started their first ever formal park and recreation department. And we had been working with them on creating their comprehensive plan for parks, recreation, open space, and trails. And the community voices were so strong to mayor and council and to the board that this really needs to be a portion focused on the recreation center, that I think it was maybe 2-3 months into the comp planning, they said, let's also do a feasibility study. So I'm happy to report that this one also had so much diverse interest in the community. The first ever Parks and Rec department, but also so many other local, regional partners, and it is being put forth for a ballot question in that particular case in November, which is just, we get excited when, certainly wellness opportunities get presented to communities just to see how they feel about it, and you're seeing that happen there. Thank you, Rich.
And we'll just skip right through here. Town of Gilbert's another example, but in the interest of time.
And that is where you and
All right. So we talk about our scope, just as a reminder, and this is lifted straight from your RFP, but this is a feasibility study for a regional recreation center, and those elements are going to include, first and foremost, the needs assessment. We know it's important to understand really what the unmet needs and the interests are of your local community. We'll be doing an analysis of site options and, of course, the financial analysis. And the devil there's in the details, of course. So that's projected revenues from user fees, construction cost estimates, operating expenses, and strategies on how to fund construction and ongoing expenses so it's a sustainable facility. That'll all be a part of this. We're looking at 5 phases. That's how we break this down. Our discovery and project kickoff, we will be discussing that as soon as council votes to move forward and signs the contract. We're off and running, and we will start learning as much as we can, as quickly as we can about your community. There's a large degree of analysis, of course, using all that information to start peeling through it, to understanding what it means and how it can be applied to this project. Community engagement simultaneously. Again, we've talked about the importance of that, and we've got a few slides just to highlight our philosophy towards that. Visioning is where we take all those findings and we bring them back to you, and we say, here's what we heard. How does it sound? Did we miss anything? Anything else needed before we start putting it into action and those actionable items that Jason mentioned? At no point will you be surprised by anything that we're bringing forward, because we keep you up to date all along the way, and that visioning piece is so critical. And then ultimately reporting out to you, and that's how we end the project. You're looking at 10 months from kickoff. This is roughly how we have this laid out, although this could be a discussion item. I will defer to Brian, but we have had some initial discussions about when do we want to launch engagement to make sure that we're not stymied by any seasonal hampering, you know what I mean, with the holidays coming and then the winter months when folks are in the doldrum. And maybe it's that we want to kick it off at that time and build that excitement in what's normally a slow time of year. There will be no other distractions. We still have to come to an agreement on that, but we just want to make sure that that we are capturing as much as we possibly can, as strategically as we can. So that engagement piece is so important. But again, I don't see any reason why, regardless of when we start this, we couldn't have it within the 10-month time frame. We are known for our engagement at Very Done, and these are just our principles here. I'll highlight them very quickly. We're immersive. We don't expect people to come to us. I think gone are the days when we assume people are going to want to come to a town hall and give their feedback. That's great when that happens, and we will do some very traditional engagement like that, but we also understand the importance of meeting people where they are and going to them and seeking them out actively in the spaces in which they gather. Customized. I know it sounds scary early on when you hear, oh, this national firm and they have all these people. At its core, there's about 26 of us consultants that live and breathe parks and recreation, and to that effect, everything we do is customized to your community. There is nothing cookie cutter. We sit and we work out the best solutions with you. It's a collaboration, but nothing is cookie cutter. It's all customized to your community. It's convenient. We believe in a hybrid approach. As we mentioned, not only do we go out and seek people aggressively, but we give them the tools so they can give feedback from the comfort of their home using our project website. Through a range of engaging tools, they can offer feedback in addition to, as we mentioned previously, that random sampling, that statistically valid survey that we will include. Inclusive, we actively seek out those hard-to-reach voices. If you have groups, often as teenagers, seniors, different ethnic groups, whatever the case may be, and our studies will tell us who those groups are, but we will seek those folks out and make sure they are invited and welcome to this conversation. And lastly, it's defendable. We give a different way of reporting on our successes. It's not necessarily on just the number of comments we receive, for instance. We actually document who is invited to the conversation, and we can quantify those hard to quantify numbers to make sure that we're telling the full story of who was actually invited to the table. All right, and to that end, this is just a real quick overview of our engagement platform. You're seeing right here, and I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. Right here, this is these are like little Post-it notes, but it represents an online community forum. These are contributions to what we call the ideas wall. So people can go online and say, hey, I want to see this particular feature at a park, and people can vote it up or they can vote it down and say, no, I don't want that, I want this. It's meant to generate those conversations online just as effectively as if we were doing it in person. We have budgeting exercises where we give people an imaginary fund and we say, here's $100, how would you spend it? You have these programs to choose from, and people can slide and would show how much money they would put. Another way we can help prioritize preferences in the community. Same with mapping. We can drop a pin on the map and say, at this intersection right here, I want a park bench and I want shade on it and a massage table. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. We can be that granular with that particular tool. So we have lots of different tools. Just wanted to highlight that for you very briefly. We work closely with local businesses, whether that's free coffee at a coffee shop. This is all through Barry Dunn, mind you. A free beer for your feedback. We do that one for communities that are interested. Also very successful. Pop-ups in the park with shaved ice. We try to do incentives and fun activities. So these are just some examples for you. We're not even afraid to go out in character. In the center there, you're seeing the Blues Brothers. I may know that gentleman on the left in the hat. But anyway, we do that as well. We the really creative innovation with children. We do build the world's best playground. Here's an example right there. Maybe we can do something similar with that with a recreation facility. But lots of different ways to get creative and have fun. We got to do the work. We can enjoy it while we do it, correct? And that's basically just a very quick taste of what's coming. We are so excited to present that, to meet with you again and start to discover all of the secrets of your community. And let me stop presenting, sorry. We want to make sure we have time to answer questions. I know that was a lot to lay on you. We tried to keep it brief, but I hope you can tell that we are excited because we are. This is what we live for. And if you have any questions now, I know we'll have plenty of time to meet once the project officially kicks off. But in the meantime, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Rick. I know we're all very excited for this to get started. Did anyone have any questions or comments that they wanted to make at this time? No? Okay. All right. I don't know that we have any questions at this point in time, but thank you so much for your presentation, and we're really excited to be working with you.
The feeling is mutual, and thank you again for your service. Absolutely value that very much.
Thank you, Rich. And like I mentioned, we'll be scheduling the kickoff meeting after that agreement is approved and signed by council. Coming up, and that comes up on the 21st.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to item E, our PROS master plan update.
Okay. So we had Kat come and talk to you guys a couple of meetings ago about the comp plan and our updates to the comprehensive plan. Staff have been working through this worksheet of existing policies. This is from 2016. We had added in the update to the Parks and Recreation Open Space 2019 updates into that existing policy, which were about 45 policies. Just in the updates that we worked on with CAC, we're at 119 now. So there's very much a need to, with the new Parks and Recreation Department, to update that PROS plan. In the past, Development Services had done that about every 6 years, and now it's handed over to the new Parks and Recreation Department, and we are at year 6 in 2025 and have that on slate to get that started. So I had a sit down with one of the new planning commissioners who's very interested in cross-collaborating with both the Arts Commission and the Parks and Recreation Commission, specifically around placemaking. And as we look at like our 2030 development plans, as they review development applications, they want to have a better understanding of what the Parks and Recreation and Open Space Plan is and how that fits in with overall city development and the urban growth area in general. So as we go through this process, we will work with the Planning Commission probably very closely as one of the main stakeholders as we do this. Share screen here. So you had a chance over the last few months to look at the Parks and Recreation Open Space RFP and scope. I got a few comments from you guys, and we made a few tweaks from there. I'll throw it up here for some of our new commissioners, and I realize that we do have some new commissioners, so I need to send this out to them as well, and I can resend it out to anyone else that wants to take another look at it. It is going to go to council here next month to go over the RFP for approval to submit. So the goal of the RFP is to select a qualified firm to create a comprehensive Parks and Recreation master plan that will be heavily used as a resource for future development and redevelopment of the city's parks, open space, recreation facilities, programs, and services over the next 10 years. The plan should create a roadmap for ensuring an appropriate balance of facilities, amenities, and programs throughout the community now and into the future. The city is seeking a system-wide approach to evaluating parks, open space, recreation facilities, amenities, and programs in order to develop goals, policies, and guidelines along with achievable strategies. Oak Harbor City projects the total budget for this project to be $80,000. And then share a little presentation here. So our Parks and Recreation Open Space Plan, I like to use the term PROSPER with that, will be created from this work, will be a document for guiding us for future development. And that goes over just what I relayed directly from the RFP, a community-sourced and system-wide approach in order to develop those goals and policies for prioritizing strategies based on current and future funding scenarios. So our plan was updated in 2019. This is going to be almost more of a new plan than an update to that plan because there's so much more involved with it with the new department. And we are incorporating some plans that are already in process. So we have the arts plan completed. We have the urban forestry management plan that is, we're halfway through right now. We have the feasibility study that we're about to kick off. So there's a lot of these planning efforts that will go into this as well. So we'll cover goals, policies, and projects. We'll look at the level of service, recreational facilities and access, parkland acquisition, green space development, a 6-year implementation plan, fees, cost recovery. We'll have a cost recovery model that will be developed as part of it, and funding strategies. Since we're getting a little short on time, I'll go through these fairly quickly, but we'll make sure that you have a copy of this to look over. This is kind of an older version of a presentation that's going to go to council, just talking about the RFP. Let me know if you have any comments on it or things that you want to tweak. So we'll go over and talk about spatial relationships between neighborhood parks, community parks, ratio of recreational facilities to the community, what those nationwide standards are, which are typically about a 10-minute walk to an open space or parkland. Also looking at year-round service, which means more indoor facilities, which we lack in this community. We'll also look at our demographics and what growth projections are, and make sure that we are updating those standards of service in relation to those growth projections. And level service concerning recreational facilities are comprehensive list of available facilities and what that ratio is per resident, and making sure that that meets national standards as well. And proximity location for trails, and looking at connectivity with our the name's blanking on me, but our accessible trail system plan that connects multimodal forms of transportation throughout the community that our engineering department's been working on. You can see examples of that with 7th Street and the bike lanes. Swantown will get those improvements as well. Our 6-year capital improvement plan, so this will look at that, and we'll make adjustments to that during the next budget cycle. The scope will be, in coordination with the city, facilitate the public process and statistically valid surveys, demographic trends, existing and future facilities, rank and prioritize demand and opportunities, develop a set of prioritized recommendations, analysis of programs and services, provide user fee analysis and philosophy, provide analysis and recommendations for partnerships, progress reporting, the action plan, ground maintenance management plan, and development of final plans and supporting materials. So to touch on each one of these, Robust community engagement, that was a big part of it. It's also one of the driving factors of cost. So one of the things that we were a little worried about and went out to look at where we're getting, what we're seeing in the market for some of those costs and what we'll want to consider when we're negotiating and making sure that we're within that budget price. Technical analysis and data collection. We'll do full GIS-based inventory of our parks. Some of that's already being done through our urban forestry management plan, so we'll have a cost savings there, and we'll be able to implement or include that in the PROS plan as well. Benchmarking against national standards and integration of multiple existing city planning documents, like I mentioned. Implementation and action plan, prioritization of our projects and funding strategies, operations and staffing recommendations, cost recovery methodology, partnerships, and budget analysis. So this goes beyond just a high-level vision document. And then final development, graphically rich deliverables, have charts, maps, visuals, multiple presentations to our advisory boards, steering committee, and then council, of course. So when we looked at it, we wanted to see, okay, well, what are we seeing? When we went out for our urban forestry management plan, we had estimated $75,000. That's typically what a urban forestry management plan would go for. When we got the proposals, they were coming in at $200,000 plus. So that makes us a little nervous. We had put in this budget item back in 2023. We had identified $80,000 for it. So we looked around and wanted to see, well, what are plants coming in at? Chemward recently did one. They have a population of 24,000, a little bit of a smaller park system. That was $120,000 for their PROS plan update. That was with less robust engagement. Sammamish, 67,000 population, larger park system, 172,000 for that update. That had a strong engagement. Tukwila, 22,000. They are currently putting out an RFP right now, and they project their range between 100 or 80,000 to 100,000. So seeing those, we went and looked at, okay, well, what are these various elements looking at so we can identify, are there things that we want to pull out or pull back from? If we do get proposals above the budgeted amount, what we found with like project management administration was roughly around $20,000. Community engagement, $35,000. This was the one that had the most largest swing in where cost estimates come in. So that's something that we'll want to consider if we could piggyback on other projects or do some of that work in-house. Statistically valid surveys, about $25,000. Resource and data collection, about $30,000. This is kind of the meat of the plan, and really looking at all the information and inclusion, as well as the implementation and action plan, which is $25,000 roughly. Plan development and deliverables, $30,000. And so we have a range. We also talked with Barry Dunn. They said typically a PROS plan for a community of our size would run about $100,000 or so. And so we saw an estimate range of about 100 to 165, depending on how we do that. We have budgeted $80,000. So if, we don't know, we might be pleasantly surprised that it comes in under budget even until we put this out and get those proposals. But we are going to put in there that we have a budget of $80,000. If we get proposals above that amount, a couple options we can do is simply negotiate the scope. We'll do some value engineering if we want to keep that within $80,000. Look at whether some of that can be done in-house. Look at projects combined. One option was to combine this with the feasibility study, which would piggyback on a lot of especially the public engagement processes that they're doing. So instead of some of those additional management costs, a lot of those could be combined. And so there's quite a bit of cost savings in there. And I think we could have an add-on to that agreement within that budget amount. So that's something we might want to look at. We'll have to have some discussions to make sure that is acceptable for piggybacking onto that grant. We know that the funds from the state, they had denied breaking off some of those planning dollars for looking at planning of an art center. And so it said, no, these funds can only be used for recreation center feasibility study. If we use additional funds to piggyback on and share some of those processes, I don't know that that would violate the use of the funds that are being used for feasibility study, but we just want to make sure that they're okay with that and everything's transparent. And then we could also look at increasing appropriation. David would rather we not do that, so we'll try and look at keeping that within the $80,000 budget. So the planning process, once kind of from here, is we take the RFP scope to council. We want to hear from them on specifically around the scope. If they have any feedback around that, anything that they would like to see tweaked with it or added to it. And then we will confirm a subcommittee, steering committee to look at those proposals. We'll review those applicant firms and probably do a second round of interviews. We might have CAC or a member of the Planning Commission as part of that as well, since we're going to try and integrate this in so much into our comprehensive plan. And then commission assistants, you guys will be pretty heavily involved throughout this planning process, especially with public meetings that we have. We'll do regular commission updates. And then once we have those deliverables, we'll move that to commission for final approval, see if there's any tweaks that you want to it. We'll probably also take that to the Planning Commission as well for their approval before that comes to council, back to council for adoption. Okay. Any questions or comments at this point? This has been put on the, I want to say it was the November 5th council meeting, I believe. If that was right. The first council meeting, no. Is that right? I don't know, it's been moved a couple times. I think it's the first council meeting, but it's a discussion item only at this point. It's not an action item. Just for the workshop, we want to run that by council before we put that out, so.
My only comment is if we can find a way that's legitimate to piggyback these two things, I think that's really in our best interest, one for cost savings, but also for synergy. I think there's a lot of reasons to like that for efficiency as well.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that comment. Denise, did you have any comments or questions? No.
And Denise, I realize as a new commissioner, you haven't had a chance to look at this RFP yet, so I will send that to you so you can read through it and give me any comments or questions you have.
Good, thank you.
Could you also send it to Kim? Because I don't know, I don't remember.
On when we went over this last time? Okay. I'll just send it back out to all the commission just so it's fresh in your emails and you guys can look back over it one more time and see the tweaks that we have made to it.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to item F.
Oh, Carrie,
I'm sorry.
I think maybe just so we could include, okay, the commission has looked through the RFP. We will include any comments you have, but motion to go forward and basically since we're going to take this to council, let them know that you guys are recommending that we put out the RFP for the pros plan.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we put out the RFP.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Okay, now we will move on to item F, Advisory Board Vacancies Update. At this time, we still have one opening on our commission. I don't know if there's been any additional applications at this time.
I have not seen additional applications.
Okay,
yet.
so we're still looking for people to apply if you know anybody.
Which is really interesting because we've had a lot of members from the public interested in various projects we're doing or planning efforts we're doing. Every one of them I've mentioned, hey, we do have an opening if you'd like to be on the commission. So yeah, if you just know people in the community that you want to work, that are interested and have a desire to have their kind of voice heard or represent the community on whatever their interest is, I encourage them to apply.
Okay, then we will move on to item G, subcommittee updates. For Parks and Playgrounds, our meeting, we got interrupted by a fire. So we didn't get as much done as we normally would, but we did discuss the community garden. And then sort of the collaboration between the Planning Commission and Arts Commission and the Parks and Rec Commission. And then we briefly talked about setting up a meeting with Sabrina and Sandra on the accessible playground, but we haven't gotten that set up yet. Vicki, did you have anything else? Yeah. Okay. And then for programs and events, or I'm sorry, were there any questions on that? Okay. For programs and events, we went over the city master calendar for the upcoming year of events and classes and all of that fun stuff. We went over the timeline for the next activity guide. Let's see. We'll be partnering with Parent to Parent for the Halloween and Christmas parties again this year. And then we also briefly met with Cheryl at the Main Street Association and Tiffany Wheeler regarding the sensory zone for the Veterans Day Parade and we're calling it the short route parades that Main Street puts on. So we started coordinating that, and that's all I got for programs and events.
All right, as far as facilities go, we spent most of our time discussing pickleball, and we've already kind of covered that at length, so I don't think there's a lot more to say there. Just still trying to figure out solutions to that. We had a short conversation or update about Freedom Park. Just we had to take a little pause on some of the construction going on out there just because the aggressiveness of some of the Hornets and Yellow Jackets and stuff making it difficult for the team. And that's pretty much how we spent our time. We had a long conversation about pickleball, and, again, I think see earlier in the meeting for kind of where we're at on that. Still working out solutions.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
I had a question. So Brian, the public restroom, the porta potty that was out at Volunteer Park, is there a plan to replace that or possibly place like a Portland loo there?
Volunteer Park. We think we should, yes.
Yeah, I think we should. It was a couple months ago that we said that any park with a parking area, we're going to say that we're inviting you to come and spend time at the park. I think we need to figure that out. The last update that I heard, that we did catch the people who did that. So the goal of putting it under it worked out in the end if something were to happen. So everything kind of came full circle there. Yeah, I would say probably temporary and then think of a permanent solution.
Yeah. We're having quite a few discussions with the school district, with their facility planning advisory group, and what future plans are. One of the members of that group came and met with Steve Schuler and I last week. So we're talking quite a bit about land swapping, and I would love to just put in a permanent restroom that isn't so easily vandalized, because it is a lot of money to replace these every time someone torches them, and it's just not sustainable in our budget to just keep replacing it every time someone comes and burns one of these things down. So it does make sense, especially with the use, and as we try to expand use, as we're doing more out there, to have something permanent. That's going to have to be put into the capital budget plan. There's a little, but like I said, we are having a lot of discussions with the school district about land swapping, so we're kind of seeing where that goes a little bit. But in the meantime, we do want to make sure that we provide services for the people utilizing that park. So we'll keep putting out portables. Any discussion beyond that, it's in the works. We're slowly working towards a more permanent solution, I think.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item H, Parks and Recreation Director updates.
Just a couple quick little things. We are scheduling fall meetings with the leagues. We do have a new board for the North Whidbey Little League, and they reached out to us They wanted to get caught up on payments and kind of help rebuild that relationship a little bit. We talked quite a bit about maintenance projects and roles they can play. And I'm pretty excited for the new board. I hope that this is kind of a fresh chapter of partnership where we can get a lot of things done together. We had a second phase of improvements for the ball fields, as well as renovations of the softball fields at Volunteer Park that we had slated. We didn't get the grants to go forward with those, but those are still things that we want to look at. So we want to have those discussions with the Little League on how we can do that, make that happen. We'll talk about, and we'll have to have a discussion with this commission on your priorities for the RCO grants. I mean, we kind of already have some things slated in, but there are other national park grants and different things that we can go for. There's a youth engagement in sports. I'm not sure if that's the right acronym. It's the acronym's YES, Youth Engaged in Sports Grant. That is I'm trying to remember what the term is, but basically it's you go and you test youth before and after the program, and you work with the university as part of it. A proven performance grant, something like that. And so anyway, it actually ties it into what youth learn, ties it into their social health, mental health, as well as physical skills they learn, things like that. So, and that's reported back through the university or a college that's doing that program. So that's a grant that we can also look at. So we'll be having some of those discussions along with football. We'll be meeting with them as well. And then we are looking at the next phase for Centennial Grove and also looking at the site planning for that. We might include that as part of our urban forestry management plan funding grant for doing a site plan for that, and then taking that to the county and Navy for approval. I guess the vision in my mind for it would be we would have a well-forested Gary Oak Grove with some just nice little walking paths and some little sit areas to go and just for that kind of northern end of town that don't have a lot of easy access to green spaces. That'd be a nice place to buffer some of that noise from SR20 and just have a nice green space to be able to go to. And then the Arts Commission has been talking quite a bit about crossover with Parks and Recreation, what that looks like, whether that's a joint meeting or subcommittee type check-in, going out for coffee or whatever that looks like. The subcommittees were created because we had a new department and there was such a big first process, right? And you see that with all the different planning efforts that we're doing, right? So there's a lot that is was being evaluated, priorities that were being set, and then funding that was being identified and pursued, and then planning efforts that are being put in place and created. So we created the subcommittees to just handle all of that so that we can work through some of that stuff with staff as kind of like a workshop, and then bring a more well thought out and cleaner proposal for discussion and presentation to the commission. Most commissions don't do that. And I want to be careful about what things we do in those, because we can't do any kind of action items or anything like that. So when we do crossover subcommittees, we just want to think about that. What are we talking about? Making sure that we're not like doing any planning efforts or making any decisions in those. But I think what they're really looking for is just an information sharing, and they want to make sure that what they're working on synergizes well with what you guys are working on, and that you guys are both in line, similar to what the Planning Commission had come and met with me about, wanting to make sure that they're working parallel with you guys, and opportunities to have discussion with you on placemaking and things like that. So something to give some thoughts on. I know, Carrie, you had some discussions around that as well.
Yeah, I had just met with JR and Tracy briefly I had met with Tracy previously looking at the website, and there was just some fine tuning things that we wanted to look at, which was easier to do looking at a screen together. But in that conversation, we kind of realized there was a lot of overlap with what we're doing and what they're doing, and it would be nice to have a little bit more communication between the two, whether that is a joint subcommittee or joint meetings or just kind of touching base as needed. I don't know how that looks, what works best for everybody, but if the planning commission is wanting to do joint meetings, maybe we just schedule like periodic joint commission meetings amongst the three commissions. I don't know if that would be something that's useful or feasible.
Yeah, I think both commissions would probably be open to that. We just need to find a time, and whether that's a separate special meeting, just so it doesn't delay other items that the planning commission needs to consider or that Arts or you guys are working on.
Any thoughts from anybody?
I think a joint meeting amongst the three subcommittees would be most time efficient for all of us.
Okay. Denise, did you have any thoughts or comments on that?
If every member of all of the three commissions go, that will be a very large discussion indeed.
Yeah, we definitely need to have an agenda item with, just a handful of topics that you guys want to talk about that are interrelated.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I just would encourage everybody to watch the meetings online if you get a chance. I know that it's not always the most fun, but, if you watch it later, you can put it on double time, so it's half the time. But just something for everyone to consider, just to kind of feel out what everybody's working on. Anything else?
I'll pass that on to the other commissions, and we'll see if we can schedule a time, and we might just throw out an email chain just for ideas around topics that you guys want to cover. We have ordered the mascot for Ollie the Sea Otter. They'll be used in special events and different fun things, so hopefully you'll get to meet Ollie in person here coming up, and then I'll turn it over for Brandon real quick.
Yeah, so we had a quick update on the native restoration zone down at Windjammer Park. I think it was Tom asking me about the topsoil that you guys saw down there. We have installed over 270 yards of topsoil. We're going to extend that native restoration zone out to encompass there's a break, a gate in the fencing there that was over to Pioneer Auto that we removed a gantry out of that we had installed a while ago. We readjusted those gates to close them and make them permanently closed. And we're going to add Western Red Cedar, Nootka Rose, Oregon Grape, and Black Gooseberry within that plot over there, and add some chip to it and kind of just encompass that whole area into a native area. And that was a partnership with some of the tribes around. So we are working on a signage, whether that be, I would like to do rock, but I haven't gotten any cost back, but do some sort of just signage out there that says this was in conjunction with the local tribes and the city of Oak Harbor.
David, did you have something you wanted to?
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we can move on to member comments. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
I have one comment. Trash cans at Fort Nugent. We have a higher use time this time of year with football practice and soccer out there, and yet trash cans have disappeared. Like, there's no trash can in the upper parking lot anymore. So I'm wondering if that's just a Fort Nugent problem or if there's other parks, but wondering about that, because as a result, I've removed a lot more in my disc golf people. I've removed a lot more trash from the park as just a result. The typical stuff, nowhere to put it, so it gets, and lots of that is dog poop bags, which is the least fun to have to remove. So if we could get trash can or two back out there, that would be phenomenal.
Any other comments?
I have one. Brian, the unsheltered encampments on in the Friend Marsh area are a continual problem. We have noticed that a lot of the sleeping bags, blankets, jackets, pants, shoes, all have come directly from a thrift store or some other organization that gives these things out. And the campers use them one night and leave them, and they end up soggy next to the trash cans. Don't want to go on about it. There's a lot, and we have called the police many times. They're very good, and they come out. But the solution to the problem is yet to be found. So I guess that's my comment. I don't know if you have any ability to make a difference on that or not.
You summed it up. It's an ongoing issue we work with PD on. And no, if you do find a solution to that, I know cities all across the nation that would love to hear it.
Okay, any other comments? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item 8, determination of future agenda items. Do we have anything at this time?
I would like to begin talking about the Scenic Heights Trail maintenance. Specifically, what type of herbicide is used to clear grass away, the cutting back of the vegetation along the trail, the debris left by unsheltered people, and the speed, a speed limit for electric bikes and any kind of bikes.
Okay. Any other agenda items that anyone has at this point? Okay. Seeing none, are we ready to adjourn? All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn.